Oh, good morning. Good Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Um, I'm really enjoying talking to you guys live each day. That's just really cool for me, and I'm so thrilled that everybody's showing up for these chats. I mean, we've had as many as 8 million people show up for these. So if you're here, thank you. If you're not, tell all your friends to tune in because we're really talking about what's happened overnight or over the last few nights or whatever. And I'm kind of breaking things down to you. No spin, no politics, no nothing about what's going on. And I'm answering your questions, and we're picking the questions based on how much they represent all the questions we're getting. So if the question gets chosen, it's because there were 1,000 more like it. So we just really want to choose those questions that seem to represent what's on everybody's mind. So what's been happening this weekend? A lot of things. So many states have relaxed their restrictions, their shelter at home restrictions. And I don't know if you're in favor of that or not in favor of it, um, but I'm really wanting to be really clear um, about what this means and what it doesn't mean. I used an analogy the other day. I said when I was teaching my boys to drive, I told them that when they came to an intersection and sat there and got a green light, that didn't mean go. It meant they had the option to go. Doesn't mean you have to go. It means you have the option to go. And that's exactly how I'm looking at what's happening right now um, in the United States. So some of these have been some of the states have really relaxed and gone into what's a lot of states are calling phase two. Some are phase one, some are phase two. And look, you don't need to memorize the phases and the codes. You just need to check your local news websites, and they'll tell you what is open and what's not. Um, in California, where we live, some retailers have opened up where you can pick things up at the curb, or they'll bring them to the door for you. But nobody is going to any kind of concentrated areas. Beaches are still closed because people were not respecting social distancing to the satisfaction of the government. I have no opinion. I haven't been to a beach, so um, I don't know. And I know that Mother's Day was probably difficult for a lot of people if you didn't feel like you had been in quarantine enough to be together. Um, I know yesterday in New York, Worldometers.info reports 41 new deaths. Now, that is terribly tragic for those 41 people. One new death is too much, right? We don't want that. But think back to how high that has been and how difficult that has been for people when those numbers were triple digits, 4-digit numbers. It's just terrible. They have 345,000 cases reported at this point, 41 deaths. New Jersey, 146. Massachusetts, 139. California, 26. Pennsylvania 25, Michigan 25, Florida 5, Texas 22. So some of the states that have opened up more and more over the weekend did not report higher deaths, but you have to understand those deaths would be delayed by 4 or 5 days. What you have to look for is whether really opening up big this weekend had a positive or negative effect or not won't be evident until you see what happens a week from now, 10 days from now. That's when the spike in deaths are more likely to occur. Um, this this flattened, depressed curve, like 41 in New York, which is very encouraging news, not for those 41. I understand that. That reflects all the stay-at-home activity that's been going on. It doesn't reflect the weekend where everyone went out. They had 1,997 new cases reported yesterday. So far today, 411 new cases in New York and 62 new deaths, whereas yesterday there were only 41 new deaths. So by comparison, only is not the right word, but in comparison it was less. They've got more deaths today, and it's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon out there. So, and this is what's reported on worldometers.info. So, take that for what it will. In California today, there have been 2. In Texas, there have been none. So things are beginning to improve generally. I mean, we have to acknowledge that. So how'd you spend your Mother's Day? Did you FaceTime? Did you Zoom? Did you have the opportunity to get together and maintain social distancing, or whatever? I hope you found the right formula and did the right thing. I have to change the subject for a minute and tell you something that has really caught my attention and I've been very engaged in over the last several days is what's happened with the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia. You've all seen the videotape. You've all heard both sides of the story, I'm sure. I'm very troubled about this at several different levels. If for some reason you have missed it and don't know, what I'm talking about is a young black male, I believe he was 25 years old, was out jogging through a neighborhood, and he was stopped by 2 men, a father and a son. There was a third person at least involved that was videotaping this. Other videos have now emerged. And the young man was shot to death at point blank range with a 12-gauge shotgun. Now, this happened some time ago, and it's just now emerging that this has been languishing, and there's been a failure to prosecute. It doesn't seem like there's been much investigation. People are recusing themselves on the law enforcement and judicial side of this. I'm troubled at several different levels. I'm troubled first off by what happened. It is absolutely heartbreaking for this Arbery family to lose their son. This was a very tragic situation, and this young man really seemed to have a bright future. Just a smile that would just light up a room, and he just seemed like a really great young man. I'm sure people will dig up some kind of dirt. Nobody's perfect, but I can tell you as a as a father of 2 sons, not far out of the age range of Ahmaud, I just can't imagine one of my boys going out jogging and winding up dead because 2 people just stop him in the middle of the road and shoot him dead with a shotgun. He was unarmed, and you'll just have to look at the video and make up your mind about what happened. I'm very troubled by that. But then I'm also troubled by how it's been handled in terms of investigation and prosecution. This just stinks to high heaven to me. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting deeper and deeper involved every day. But it really, really troubles me that this kind of thing is still able to happen in the United States of America, and then no accountability be held for it. Are these men that shot and killed this man murderers? I don't know. I can't say that. I haven't seen all the evidence. They haven't been to trial. They haven't been given their day in court and all the evidence come out. But I can tell you they damn sure deserved a look. And this went on for a couple of months without any charges, no grand jury, and potential prosecutors recuse themselves. Some say because one of the people involved, the father, was a former police officer. So I don't know, but I am very, very troubled by this. And I am getting very involved in this, and we are going to bring you the truth about this. And I'm sure it bothers you as much as it does me. It doesn't matter whether you're a person of color or you're Caucasian, Latino. It doesn't matter whether you're young, old, where you live, what part of the country. If this doesn't bother you, it should. And it certainly bothers me. So we're going to be looking into that. And we'll keep you posted on that. But I was very, very troubled by that. As far as the quarantine goes, things are lightening up. They are loosening up. The question is, when you get that green light, which you probably have in your state right now, at least to some degree, it's either green or it's flashing green, meaning, okay, go with caution. Look, you don't need the government to think for you. What you need to do is use common sense. And if you do choose now to go back out and engage more with the world, please do so with some common sense and some caution. I mean, how big a sacrifice is it to wear a mask? How big a sacrifice is it to say hi and stay back 6 or 8 feet from someone? How big a sacrifice is it to avoid a group congregating on a corner waiting for a light to change or whatever? Just take a beat, protect yourself. And even if you feel like you're not particularly vulnerable, you might be around people who are. So just think about that. Just use common sense. I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to get this thing turned around. I'm very optimistic that we have a vaccine on the horizon, that we have antibodies on the horizon. But we're here now without either one of those things. So we need to protect ourselves. And man, America, coast to coast, border to border, has been doing a great job of that. Let's not fumble in the 11th hour. So proceed with caution and take care of yourself and take care of your children. I was on the computer this weekend with Robin, and we watch streaming services. We watch TV. We watch streaming service shows as well. We happened onto a show on Amazon called Regular Heroes. And this is just a 30-minute show. And if you have Amazon, then just go there and type in Regular Heroes if it's not right up at the top. But I highly recommend you watch this show. If you want a reminder of human spirit, if you want a reminder of the goodness in human nature, you need to watch the show called Regular Heroes. This first episode, it's a series. The first episode is hosted by Alicia Keys. And they're focusing on people that are just regular, everyday people that have really proven themselves to be heroes during this pandemic crisis. And I've often said that crises don't make heroes, they reveal who people really are. And they talk about 3 stories in particular there. They talk about one who is a father and a husband who is a supply clerk in a major hospital, and everything he does and sacrifices so other people can have what they need and the tools they need to do the job they need to do. They focus on a man down in the Ninth Ward in New Orleans, where I've been, on an airboat when water was 10, 12 feet deep down there. And this man runs a grocery store, and they talk about his story and his family. And then they talk about a woman that has been homeless twice, but now has a job and is working to help the homeless. and what she's doing out on the streets. And these are absolutely inspirational stories. You you absolutely must watch this show. If you don't watch anything else today, watch Regular Heroes, because it will uplift your spirit and it will make you want to get involved and do something, whether it's to support these three people in their mission or to choose one of your own or to give back in some way. But if you don't watch anything else today, well, watch Dr. Phil, of course. But the other thing you need to watch is Regular Heroes, because it's very well done and it's very heartwarming. It's just 30 minutes. You'll really love it. I'm very excited about what we're doing this week on Dr. Phil. So let me talk about that as well. This is an exciting week for me because I had said, if we want to have a reminder of life before pandemic, what better way to do that than to bring you shows that were done before pandemic was even in our vocabulary. And these are shows that we shot right up until the time they shut us down and said, you can't use the studio anymore, you got to go home and stop shooting. Well, we didn't stop shooting, but we did start shooting from home. And these are the shows that you have supported us in bringing you, that are so relatable and have such a message and are intended to have such an inspiration every day. And I think you're going to really enjoy these. The show today, trying to fix my chair so I don't keep rocking back and disappearing from the camera. The show today is really vintage challenge. Now, I have a selfish reason for wanting you to watch this one in particular. I've got a great team at Dr. Phil. You know, everybody, the political thing, correct thing to say if you have your own TV show is to stand up and brag on your team, right? Because, I mean, that shows that you're a gracious individual and that you appreciate the work of others. I know that's a politically correct thing to say and all, but I'm serious about this, and you'll know I'm serious when you watch what happens today, because we have a young woman named Cassie. Her sister Stephanie is there along with her mother Cheryl and her ex-father Dave. Now, Cassie, like a lot of young people that you've seen on Dr. Phil, has a problem with substances, and she's a bad alcoholic, young. I mean, she's in her 20s, and she gets there and just decides the morning of the show, she's just going to take off and go get her drink on. And now, the Paramount studio is in Hollywood. It's one of the most historic lots in the history of Hollywood, and it's over at Melrose and Gower, which sits over in the east side of of Hollywood. When you get off the lot, there are some areas that you probably wouldn't want your children to play. It's just not necessarily the safest place. There's lots of traffic. There are a lot of people on the street there that have questionable judgment. It's just not the best place that you would want your children to go play. I'll just put it that way. Right before the show, she just decides she's just going to take off and go get her something to drink. And so she runs off the lot and runs 10 blocks the wrong direction on Melrose. There were liquor stores a lot closer, is what I mean. If she had gone right, she probably would have found one within a block or two. She went left, had to go 10 blocks. And she took off for 10 blocks. When I say got the best staff in television, I've got people following her for her safety, chasing after her, trying to keep everything contained. And this is an adult. We have no right to stop her. We can't say, you can't do this. You can't go buy alcohol. You need to come back here and sit down and be interviewed. Well, I can't do that. Her parents can't do that. So at that point, we become documentarians. And you're going to see some very devoted young women and young men that are involved in trying to protect her, keep her safe, keep her out of traffic, keep her away from the wrong kind of people. And This went on for an hour, chasing up and down Melrose. And again, we become documentarians at that point. So all of this unfolds, and we get to talking to her parents, because I want to talk to them first and find out what her resources are. As it turns out, her dad has actually been doing drugs with her and since a very young age. And she now has actually says that she has actually gotten money through prostitution, and he denies encouraging her to do that, but he certainly takes the benefit of the money. So because they live together, and it's a very challenging situation. You'll hear about that today and tomorrow. This is a two-part. Hell, we spent one day chasing her up and down the street and talking to her parents, and then we have to decide, okay, she's running up and down Melrose, so what are we going to do? How can we help? Because you can't make her do what you want her to do. So will we be able to get her back into that chair on Tuesday, or will we not? Are we going to have to work through the parents? Are we going to have to intervene on the street? You'll see what goes on. You just see things on Dr. Phil you just don't see anywhere else on television. You just don't see them anywhere else on television. You know, normally, I mean, I did Oprah for 5 years. I'd go there, people would come in, sit down, we would talk, we would finish, say thank you and goodbye. That just doesn't seem to be the way the world is anymore. I mean, we've got people running through the gates and doing different things. But, you know, my attitude is you meet people where they are, and you never surrender to the disease. You never surrender to the disease. That's not a rational woman making rational decisions. That's a woman under the influence making irrational decisions. Are you going to surrender to that? Or are you going to give up? That's not her. It's the alcohol. So we don't give up. Wednesday, this show is called From College Scholarship to Stealing, Smoking, and Living in a Car. And again, we've got young people that are just on self-destruct. Karina was an overachiever. She had a college scholarship, but she only went for a week. Now, did you hear what I said? She had a scholarship to college. Somebody had stepped up and said, you want to go to college? We'll pay for it. That's how much we think of you and your future. You want to go, we'll pay for it. 1 week. She went for 1 week. Her mother, Dina, claims that since Karina started hanging out with her boyfriend, Tommy, last year, she's been on a downward spiral smoking weed. She was sneaking him into the house. So finally her mother just says, okay, you can't come here anymore. I'm staying up all night. I'm worrying to death. You're sneaking this guy in. And there's two sides to this story, and there's a lot of pushback coming from Karina and Tommy about mom and what's going on here. So listen, you want to watch this show. You're going to be in some part of this equation if you've got a young person at some time. So you want to watch this. Thursday is one of the most interesting scenarios I've dealt with in a long time. Susie was a very successful body double in Hollywood. Like Kim Cattrall, for example, she was a body double for her, and some other A-list stars. And this was an incredibly intelligent, attractive woman. She was athletic, she was interesting, she was very engaging, and there wasn't anybody in Hollywood did not know and respect and admire her. She was a model, she was a body double, she was smart, adaptable. And 10 years ago, she claimed she developed a mysterious illness that leaves her shaking, trembling, convulsing, and having to force feed herself 7,000 calories a day. 7,000 calories a day. Now, she says things are so bad that she has to have food on hand even when she's in the bathroom or in the shower. So if she's in the shower, she says she's got to have food on hand. When she came on stage, she had to have food nearby because she says if she finds this drive inside for this food. She has to have it or she'll start convulsing. And she provides us with a lot of at-home video where she is, in fact, having convulsions. I'm going to dig into this and figure out what's going on. Friday, just a few weeks before we sat down, Christy found out that her home was being foreclosed on. She had no idea. She's there with her husband, Ernest, and she had no idea there was any problem with the house. But then she says she found it was getting foreclosed on. And she says that was the final straw and claims her husband, Ernest, did this on purpose to torture her because he knows how much she loves this home. And that he's a controller and a jerk and power playing her. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it's about a 12 triple D, because he says, no, no, no. He says, this woman's insane. She's a hoarder. She won't do anything. And when you look at this house, you're going to be astounded what she has done in this house. You can't even move around in here, that she's hoarded things so much. And they're losing the home because she refuses to help out with expenses, etc. And it says, look, we're just a two-income family, and she's draining, not helping, and she won't cook, she won't clean, she won't groom herself. She's just, in meltdown. And so we're going to unfold all of this so you can see what's happening. So look, this is vintage Dr. Phil. These are the things that we do and dig into that people live with but don't talk about. And that's what I think you're going to be really at least distracted, if not uplifted, by a lot of this. A few questions before we go. Tiffany Marie Saunders says, we are in Lake County, Illinois, and I have a question. How much should we share with a 6 and 10-year-old? Is there anything I can do to help my children deal with everything that's going on? Well, Tiffany Marie, that's a real challenge. And my answer to you is this. Don't just decide to start talking to your children. Listen first. We always say meet children where they are, use age-appropriate language, but nobody ever defines what that really means. What's appropriate for a 6-year-old? What's appropriate for a 10-year-old? First off, those are probably going to need to be separate conversations because there's a big difference between 6 and 10. Start by listening to them. Say, what do you want to know? What do you think is going on? Tell me what you understand about why mom and dad aren't going to work, why we're living differently. What do you understand? And let them tell you if they know coronavirus. Do they know COVID-19? Do they know pandemic? Do they know shelter in place? Find out what their vocabulary is. Find out what level of understanding they have, because if it's at this level, you don't want to jump in at this level and burden them with all this difference in here. Let's hear what they have to say first and then answer their questions. And if they're watching the news about this, watch it with them. Don't let them watch this on their own, because a lot of this is being spun up and sensationalized and catastrophized. Be sure you're there to interpret this for your children. So ask questions, hear what they have to say, watch the media with them, and limit that very significantly. They should watch news about this, if at all, 10 or 15 minutes a day. You may not be the only voice in your child's ear. Make sure you're the best voice in your child's ear. Valerie McCarty says, can this virus live in water? I like to swim for exercise. The infectious disease experts tell me, and I ask that very specific question, and they tell me that if you are in a swimming pool or whatever, that you are safe, particularly if it's properly controlled chemically with chlorine and that sort of thing. Now, I will tell you, it's been a couple of weeks since I had that conversation, so go to the CDC, go to the National Allergy and Infectious Disease website and pose that question again, because as you know, some of the things that were said earlier have changed now. I've been swimming on a regular basis, so I have confidence that it's okay. But I've been told that it's okay, but that's 2-week-old information. So let's fact check that, both of us. I'll do it and you do it. Christian Rico World Westland says, what are your thoughts on these cheap homemade masks? Do they actually work, or do I need a professionally fit mask? I think it's a matter of degree. I know a lot of people are making masks at home and volunteering to do it and providing them, and God bless you, and please keep doing that. Now, until I see a homemade mask, I don't know. If it's a hair net with something that goes around your ears, that's probably not going to help you much. I've actually seen that, by the way. But then, even if it's just a T-shirt material or something like that, anything that helps provides a barrier from droplets from somebody's respiratory system from getting into your mucous membranes, either being inhaled and getting into your respiratory system, or getting into the mucous membranes of your eyes or your nose or your mouth, has got to help, right? I wouldn't care if you held a newspaper up in front of you. It's got to help. If it blocks that coming in, common sense tells you that has to help. Now, are these as good as masks that are made up with chemically treated paper and all? Probably not, but it's incremental. I'd rather have that on than nothing, because if somebody were to sneeze or cough out of the blue, that I just walked around the corner and somebody without a mask happened to cough or sneeze, and I was there and it hit that, wow, I'd be awful glad I had it on. If that did happen, I'd be glad I had it on. I might immediately take it off, knowing that it was now contaminated. But I think these homemade masks are certainly better than nothing. And I say that not knowing which ones you're talking about, but I'm certainly inspired by the people that are doing them. Have they discovered a vaccine or cure for the coronavirus? Well, that depends on who you talk to. I've talked to scientists that say that we may have a vaccine by August. I've talked to some that say it may be 18 months. I've talked to scientists such as Dr. Glanville up in the Bay Area that says he has an antibody for it right now. He just has to get it tested and through the system, and then have billions of doses manufactured. And he has a very smart approach to this. He's saying, even though there's a risk that it may not be approved, he wants countries to spend $20 million each so we can have 1 billion doses of this stockpiled. So the split second it gets the green light, it's widely available. He says during the Ebola crisis that once they hit upon the right antibody to save lives, it took several months, 3-4 months, to get manufacturing up to scale to be able to give antibodies to people and protect them. And many lives were lost in those 3 or 4 months in getting up to massive scale. He's wanting people to go ahead and stockpile these things now. And let's say it turns out that it's not approved or they don't work for some reason. $20 million sounds like a lot of money. We're leaking that by the hour in America. Come on. This is a good investment. This is a good gamble. Personally, I believe that they probably have a laboratory vaccine at this point, and I totally believe that there's an antibody for this that can be synthesized at this point. It's got to be approved. Dr. Glanville thinks by August they will have that in place, and there's a difference. A vaccine you give to well people. That's why you take your flu shot in September. They tell me they take a little small piece of the virus that's dead, they inject it into you, your body rallies around, creates antibodies to fight that, So now when the actual live virus is introduced to your body, these antibodies go right to it and fight it off, and you don't get sick, and certainly not as sick if you do get sick. Antibodies are different because you can give those to somebody that's already sick. You can't give a vaccine to somebody that's already sick. You know, when you get your flu shot, they always ask you, you haven't had a cold or anything in the last week or 10 days, right? Why do they ask you that? Because that means your immune system would be depleted fighting off the cold, and it wouldn't fight off the virus now. So antibodies are given to sick people, can be given to sick people, whereas vaccines cannot be given to a sick or elderly person sometimes. So I think both of these things are probably much closer in reality than we had feared, but they still have to be tested and approved. And also, who knows? Some people say August, some people say 18 months. Personally, from what I'm hearing, I believe that we're closer than we feared might be the case originally. That's just based on what I'm being told. I have no firsthand information whatsoever. That's just what I'm learning from my research and talking to the infectious disease experts. So that kind of catches us up. What have we talked about? As I've said, I'm very concerned about this Ahmaud Arbery case. I hope you'll follow that case. I plan to be as involved in it as I possibly can. I want to turn a bright light on over this. This just can't happen. You just can't have a young black male jogging through a neighborhood and somebody just stop him unarmed and gun him down in the street. And I've seen video emerge that he had walked around an open construction site right before then. Hell, Robin and I have been walking through neighborhoods and walk up on a house being built and wandered around the construction site and admired the floor plan and what was going on and looked around. He entered that site with nothing in his hands. He left that site with nothing in his hands. And it wouldn't matter to me if he had stolen 5 things from that house, which he did not. That's not a capital offense. You don't shoot somebody for stealing a 2x4, and he didn't steal anything. He didn't do anything. He was just jogging down the street. These 2 have now been charged with murder. Are they guilty? That's for the courts to decide. I'm not saying they're murderers. I can't say that because I don't know all the facts, but they certainly have my attention, and I'm going to learn all the facts. I also said go to Amazon and watch the show Regular Heroes. It will give you a warm feeling inside. Your day will go better if you watch Regular Heroes. Watch it right after you watch Dr. Phil today. I'm going to be back tomorrow talking about some things. Watch your local market because I'm very likely going to be on your local news tomorrow morning talking about what's going on Dr. Phil and some other things. So check your Dr. Phil affiliate in your local morning show tomorrow because I'll be on the news either in the morning or at noon, and if not then, Wednesday morning or Wednesday at noon, if not both. So Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll likely be on the air in your local markets. All by satellite and Zoom, of course, but I'll be talking about some very special things. I appreciate you being here. Be safe. Use common sense. Beautiful day outside in most of America. I check the weather, get some fresh air, and enjoy yourselves. I'll talk